Welcome to the Deconstructing Data live stream and podcast by BDEX. I'm Jessie Lezak, CMO at BDEX, along with Adam. We've got Adam Fitzgerald back with us today in place of David Finkelstein. And Adam is the Enterprise Sales Director at BDEX. Always great to have you on. Adam, what's new?
It is great to be here again, Jesse. Always good to chat with you. And things have been busy. Summer's heating up, activity is heating up, and business is heating up, and we like all of those things to happen. So it is good to be back with you today.
Absolutely. It sure is. And it is great. But we have a really special guest coming on. So let's get into it. Today, we on Deconstructing Data are thrilled to welcome on. Let's see. We have Ty DeGrange on here. I had the wrong script up there for a second. Didn't want to mess that up because Ty is really awesome. And they're doing some really great things over at Round Barn Labs, where he's the CEO. And we get to hear from him today. Welcome to the show, Ty.
Hello, hello. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for
Ty, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. Maybe you can kick us off by telling us a little bit about your story and what
Yeah.
led you to become CEO of Round Barn Labs.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to say you guys kicked butt on the intro, and the hype music while I'm backstage was really inspiring, and I'm bringing some energy now because you got that going and you introed me so well. So well done on that.
Thank you.
I'm taking notes on how to boost up the pod, our pod ourselves. But to answer your question, yeah, Round Barn Labs has been a fun journey. So the name is from my last name, DeGrange, loosely translates as from the barn. I lived in Sonoma County, north of San Francisco, just outside of Silicon Valley area, where I was able to kind of do a little homage to my home upbringing. There was a really cool old rad architecture round barn near the family farm where I grew up, and kind of that was my upbringing. A lot of ranch, a lot of cowboy type mentality of like handshakes and honesty and integrity and hard work, and it's kind of instilled down into the business and how we try to operate. So it's kind of a fun little homage to the family. Um, but yeah, I've been in performance marketing for 20 years. Round Barn Labs was born out of necessity, really, 11 years ago. A lot of startups and businesses were coming to me with, how do I think about affiliate? How do I think about partner marketing? How do I think about getting CAC dialed in and forecasting and channels and managing these channels and figuring these things out from search to social to attribution. So it was from there. I was kind of ready to no longer try to land at the next great Uber and hang on for the ride, and wanted to kind of pick and choose who we got to work with a little bit, and have some a little bit of agency, no pun intended. And it's worked out great. It's been a journey, and well, here we are, still going strong.
Mm, absolutely. Well, we love to hear that. And we've got some really great topics to get into. And thanks for sharing your background, because you are going to be great for getting into these topics with us. So we really appreciate your time. And it's really a conversation of marketing. And we've got a couple different marketing topics today, starting with partner marketing and driving growth through collaboration. So could you kick us off on this topic, Ty?
Absolutely. I'll say that in affiliate marketing, influencer marketing, partner marketing, they're all different flavors of a very similar ecosystem. When it comes down to it, a lot of it is matchmaking. You're taking a brand, Nike, Atlassian, HubSpot, whatever it might be, and connecting it to a great, creator, influencer, review site, deal site, um, YouTube influencer. It's matchmaking game. And partnerships and partner marketing have been around for a long time, but it's certainly having a moment in a good way. Um, I talk a lot about how it's the most misunderstood and most underrated performance marketing channel out there. A lot of people think affiliate and they think, oh, it's deal sites and that's it. There's probably about 15 different business models or flavors of it, if you will, partner types as we call them. It can make up 5, 10, 20% of revenue, sometimes even more for certain businesses or leads for the B2B space. It can drive significant value. A lot of clients come to us saying it is their most efficient marketing channel. So it's not one to sleep on. It does take a little longer and it's a more relationship based. So we try to really bring a data-driven multi-channel perspective on it, but it's definitely proven itself out.
Yeah, I hear you there on the performance marketing side, and I mean the idea of affiliate marketing I feel has been around for a while, but it's one of those things that um, I think has in some ways struggled to gain as much traction as it should and could. And so I'm curious what you think most brands get wrong when they think about affiliate or partner marketing, and when they try to scale through partner marketing. What are you seeing people get wrong, and what can we learn from that?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. I ask it a lot on my podcast as well. I love the framework. So a lot of people apply like a paid search or a paid social lens to the channel, thinking it's going to operate similarly. It's not programmatic. You're not setting bids and budgets and pumping creative in and stepping back and letting the algorithm do a lot. I'm not taking anything away from those two channels. They're huge. They're important. We've actually had great service offerings historically where we live and breathe those channels. So. Um, Affiliate's an interesting one because it actually is multi-channel. It oftentimes is more of a payment mechanism. So you can have influencer, you can have media buyers on a CPA. Technically, that could fall under affiliate. So it's a little counterintuitive. But back to what they do wrong, um, got to give it time to bake. Like I talked about before, a year window is a reasonable amount of time, and you have to take a little bit of a longer view. If you can do your diligence on the front end to say, okay, are we at product market fit? Do we have a healthy enough conversion rate? Do we have a sense of our competitors that are already in the space? Are we working with somebody reputable that actually knows what they're doing, that has the time per week to dedicate to doing this? It's a lot of cat herding. It's not like you're going into one platform necessarily. Only you can sometimes be communicating with hundreds of partners. Not all of them are going to be your top partners, but you're constantly looking to recruit and bring new ones in. um, the other thing I think is that I'll probably wrap up with here, there's a long list, so I'll keep it brief, but a lot of people get wrong that you can kind of just set it and forget it. And that I see that so often. We look at, we've probably seen hundreds, if not more, programs, and a lot of times you're not seeing regular activity to bring in new partners. You're not seeing regular cleanup of applications. You're not seeing a concerted effort or a strategy or action to get partners that are in the program live and doing activity. A lot of times you're not seeing active, creative ways to get them from, hey, you're active, but are you increasing over time? Are you actually um, staying optimal and optimized based on seasonality and payout and commission? So I think the thing I enjoy about it, I think a lot of people do, is it's multi-channel, it's rapidly changing, it's a bit of a 3D chess game, not unlike a lot of performance marketing levers. But a lot of people apply things to it that don't work, and we love to fix that for them and love to help.
I love that. Yeah, it's great to be able to like actually help people and fix things. So incredible. And partner marketing is so important, especially in this day and age, with everything being AI, having those human relationships are really invaluable. Yeah, I see you
I
nodding.
I I think there might be, yeah. So the thing to add on that is really interesting is that, if you probably noticed, we don't trust like we used to, right? It's just
Right.
not there. Like CEO trust is down, business trust is
Totally.
down, politics, government trust is down. I think there's data to suggest, I think it's like 78% people used to trust the US government. Now it's 18. A third of people trust in media. It used to be 72%. It's like this on all sorts of metrics. And so it's brands can't no longer just wave the TV flag or wave the radio flag and put a big front page ad in the newspaper and think, oh great, I'm going to get people to trust me. That's why we're all kind of working in this industry, and it's working and it's growing, and it's growing at a great clip because people are tired of that, and they're kind of fatigued in it. I think younger generations, as you probably will attest, are even more skeptical. So to have a third party like you say to Adam, oh man, working with Ty's company has really been great, it's really helpful, you should check them out. Just like anything, it's not all word of mouth, but it's kind of taking it from like an ad to more of a review or an information or a guide or a suggestion. And so it's on us to really, pluck out those high quality examples of that as much as possible, because trust is eroded so much. It's a good trust mechanism.
Absolutely. On this show, we've referred to it as the trust pandemic a couple times, like it's just because it comes up over and over again especially with data and advertising. People are weary about their data being used and shared in data privacy. And so it is a common theme, but not just in data. I mean, it's marketing in general, it's everything in general. I mean, just relationships in general. So partner marketing, it really is a bridge to kind of help with some of that. But attribution. Oh, I'm a marketer, so I could talk about attribution all day long. I know you can too, Adam. But just curious from you, could you kick us off, Ty, tracking what truly drives results in terms of attribution? I'm curious to see where you take this topic.
It's near and dear to my heart. I've talked to a ton of measurement experts on my podcast, talked about it extensively in the RBL Flywheel newsletter. It's something we work with a lot for clients and with clients. It's come up a lot when I've been in-house at organizations. I think the biggest first step is kind of just defining terms. Oftentimes people will say a terminology like attribution. I won't name the other names yet because we're going to get to those later. And they need to define them accurately. And so really even just alignment on definitions is a huge first step, because sometimes people say that and they actually mean something else. So defining it for me now, and just for us, I would say, looking through the various marketing bets and just assigning credit across those touch points, and picking out an attribution methodology, an attribution window, aligning on that. I think that that's something that, if you're doing that well and you're actually counseling clients on how to think about proper attribution, actually measuring that, it's shocking how many people are relying on last click to this day, when for a fact in the affiliate or partner world, you're going to have partners that way over index one way or the other. And so if you're not looking at through the multi-touch lens in affiliate and partner and influencer, and ideally integrating that with your other marketing bets, you're probably overpaying. And so a lot of what we work on with people is to save them money, to look at the full view, to better attribute, even if it's getting closer to perfection. The other thing I think people get caught up in is they let perfect be the enemy of good, and they don't get anywhere. And it's really, it's unfortunate. You got to make some progress towards, and not necessarily wait for perfection.
What are you seeing, Ty, in terms of models that are working for attribution, especially as it relates to affiliate and partner marketing? Like I would think that would be maybe a trickier one to really pinpoint.
Yeah, I've written about this a lot and talked about it a lot. And, there's kind of these foundations, right? You want to have your tracking dialed in with the right UTM parameters. You want to make sure so it's like that pendulum of getting to full attribution. You want to have UTM parameters correctly instrumented. You want to have making sure your tracking system in a network like an Impact or a Rakuten or a CJ or an AWIN is properly instrumented. You've got that set up accurately so that either pixel or API or batch processing is actually accurate as possible. That's been QA. It's basic stuff, but it needs to be part of it. Alignment on the attribution model. Is that lined up with your payouts? Does that make sense based on the types of partners you're going towards? You're purely on last click, and then you're going after a lot of upper funnel content partners and expecting them to promote you. Obviously, those two things don't match up. We've had a lot of success in using Impact's Optimize product and being able to see kind of a lot of the view and multi-touch to see where partners are coming in. Some of the other folks out there have similar, visibility into that, and to be able to see that, it's really important. So just being able to know where those touch points are coming from is really critical. You've got to kind of see that where they're dropping off, where people are being introduced, where people are closing, and you can reward accordingly. The other piece of it is that your affiliate network or your influencer network is going to tell a story just like Google and Meta do, which are great at overcounting or, in some cases undercounting, but most often overcounting. We can debate that one later. But it's something that you kind of have to think outside of that box, and you have to work with clients to know how do we kind of correlate with your own internal data. If it's B2B, how do we make sure that's tied to your CRM? If we're driving sign up or lead, how does that tie to your MQL or your SQL? If we're driving revenue, how does that look at long-term purchase behavior over time or cohort analysis over time? So those are some of the things that we dig into. And I think like there's a lot of like resources, tooling, and things that we can talk about. I think that there's people doing a lot of interesting things in that space that we can also kind of segue into and riff on.
Mhm. Definitely. What's your take on all of this, Adam?
Yeah, no, I would agree. I mean, I think this is the $1 million question, right? And if somebody could easily solve for accurate attribution in a way that could be adopted across all different agencies and platforms and channels, uh, they could make a lot of money.
Yep.
And I think that's
Yeah.
that's the big
Yeah.
challenge, right? That our industry faces is, as we become so much more data driven in our analysis and decision making process. Obviously, that's something that we preach and advocate pretty significantly. Just being in the data space, uh, I think that's still a really big challenge our industry faces across the board.
Mhm.
Yeah. Before we jump to the next one, this gets me thinking on some things. I think that what Measured, what Howls are doing, what Paramark are doing are some brands that come to mind. Northbeam is in that game. So a lot of I play around with the predictions every year and feel like I kind of enjoy the trend spotting stuff, and some of it's helpful, some of it's probably not. But um, I predicted like there'd be more adoption of MMM, medium mix modeling, marketing mix modeling, incrementality, attribution, resources, tools, services, and I think we're really seeing more of that. Some of the brands I've mentioned, some of the brands I mentioned before, are trying to tackle that problem. I think there's more people entering the space that are practitioners that are coming from large tech that say, hey, I can help kind of figure this out. A lot of the technology, Meta's open sourced a lot of technology. um, Google's tried to get into this game a little bit. So I think it's sort of democratizing some of these things that used to take a lot more. I think the kind of the uh, thing to keep note of though too is that a lot of people kind of want their cake and eat it too, and they don't realize how much time, effort, money is required to actually answer the question at the level of rigor they're wanting to answer it around incrementality mostly, and using like an MMM type methodology to measure for incrementality. Um, Turning on and off is really like it's not the ideal methodology, and so I think that's an interesting point that we're starting to see a lot more options in the space, and it's a little bit less onerous. But a lot of times people need to know like what they're getting into before they do those tests.
100%. Yeah. No, thanks for mentioning that. And incrementality, I mean, it's such a key word, and term that it's a buzzword, I feel like these days. Do you want to for people watching who may not even know what it is, can you just touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, I kind of define it as like if this tactic or channel or partner was removed, would you have still gotten that purchase or lead or that action anyway? So it's saying like, does this marketing activity actually bring an incremental benefit at its core? And a lot of times things are undercounted, things are overcounted in that. Um, and you don't really know until you test it, something that's been, near and dear to our theory and methodology and practice with the naming, always be testing podcasts, and our internal Round Barn Labs philosophy is always be testing. And we want to have clients have some set aside budget to kind of get into those things. But um, a lot of the good measurement people, they've run holdout tests, they've run to different groups, they've done geo holdout tests to test for incrementality. doing PSA ads in historical terms, like in programmatic, where you have a branded ad and a PSA ad to a target audience. You can do like audience. There's a lot of ways that data scientists and measurement experts look at, okay, how do we do split testing? And it's not necessarily all going to lead you to was it incremental or not. There's definitely been a big resurgence and excitement around MMM. North Bean comes to mind as one that rolled out an MMM solution. Paramark, as I mentioned before, comes to mind because I think they're on the forefront of that and doing great things and educating people about it. House is doing a great job in there, just their marketing and positioning around it to say like, hey, this is what it is. We ran this test, or this client ran this test, and this is what they got back. Which I love that they're really educating people in a way I don't think we were talking about as publicly 5 years ago. Um, and so I think that's kind of how I define it and think about some of the things to explore to actually answer the question of incrementality.
I think you're on mute, Jesse.
Sorry about that. Thank you for getting into it because it is part of the next topic. So it kind of helps lead into that. But before I do, Marcello asked earlier when we were talking about attribution, how do you see this field evolving in the next few years?
Yeah,
He's in environmental services, just to give you some perspective on his background.
that's nice. I love that context. Impressive. Um, I think that the wave of AI is here. It's coming. It's funny that some of the businesses they have maybe an algorithm, but it's not like next gen AI or the models that necessarily we're seeing with the new LLMs that everyone's using. I do think that that is only making things easier and better for these services to make some determinations, to make sense of the data, to give you guidance on if something is working or not. Obviously, Google and Meta are the prime examples of that. Um, I know Meta is rolling out some pretty heavy lift um, things on their end to really help the advertiser, but in some ways, kind of take a lot of it away in terms of the decisioning. So that's kind of the catch 22. Um, I would expect that to continue. I don't think that's a you know shocker. I think that um, similar to what I shared earlier, I think the democratization, more people are aware, getting access, actually doing tests, actually expected to answer if things are attributed correctly, incremental. Um, Almost every client we have is talking about it at least and starting to go down this path at some level of complexity to the highest complexity or sophistication, having their own measurement or data science teams internally that are tasked with solving the problem of, okay, like, should we keep spending more on TV or should we spend more on influencers kind of questions. um, so where it's going, I think in a positive way, I think AI is helping support some of the functionality, not all of it. More companies are coming into the mix and announcing they have a solution. So those solutions are getting more accessible, more affordable relatively, and more people are doing these things, which is good. I think, yeah, I'll stop there because I think there's more to talk about.
Yeah, definitely. Well, anything you want to react on with that, Adam, before I transition?
No, I
right.
think Ty covered it really well.
Yeah, that was really good. So kind of just to make sure we cover incrementality, we got into kind of the definition of it a little bit, but to drill in a little more for those who are really aware of what it is and are in knee deep, working on measurement, what would you say in terms of incrementality and measuring true marketing impact effectively?
Yeah, so the question is more of a, we've defined it now, like maybe how does one think about uh, pulling it off, understanding it, learning it? Is that how where you're headed with that?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think that first things, there needs to be some, like, for example, if you're to use MMM or media mix modeling or marketing mix modeling as a tool, it's a econometric model that pulls in a lot of data. It'll take in a lot of factors that lead to like why things are up or down over time across media spend, channels, conversion rate, seasonality, the weather. It's like taking into consideration a lot of those things. It's actually a method that's been around for a really long time. And a lot of the providers that I've listed have kind of brought it to the masses a little bit more effectively. Software as a service, you get it. A lot of times there needs to just be at its core, like I shared earlier, you have to do some level uh, of holdout, right? So it's really difficult to truly answer the question of is this incremental if you don't have some comparison. And so that's oftentimes what it comes down to. Um, Pranav at Paramark's done a really good job of outlining kind of using MMM as kind of like a gateway to determining where and how you do holdout tests. So do you do a TV spot in a particular geo? Do you have a holdout region within that geo that's meaningful, has enough sample size, has enough data to determine, hey, maybe this ad had an impact, maybe it didn't for that cohort of people. So that holdout lever is really important kind of concept is as a tool to get closer to answering, did my marketing impact this person's decision or did it not? Did it impact this group's decision or actions? Did it not? Um, the other thing that's interesting with regard to using MMM as a tool to get to incrementality and measure the effectiveness of your marketing mix is a lot of times it'll require like a look back. So there needs to be a pretty concerted effort going back to what I shared earlier that you have the budget to spend on a tool, individuals, program of sorts to take the time to look backwards and to also look forward. So it's a lot of you need to have a sizable amount of data. I think some of the things I've heard quoted is like I have to double check in my notes, but I want to say like 1 million a month. Like it's a pretty sizable amount of media spend on a per month basis, and you probably want to have three plus channels into the mix at least that are sizable. So I don't quote me on the exact spend figure, but there's some kind of minimums that a lot of providers we look to and counseling clients on software offerings will probably guide you around because you kind of have to have a meaningful data set. You need to have a meaningful mix of channels that are kind of competing to kind of drive value. I think some of the things I'm seeing is that like models are getting a little bit more accessible, more open source, a little bit lower cost. So going back to what I shared earlier, but those are some of the mechanics that really do help. Um, we in the partner space, it's nice to you have to work with a partner. It's a little harder to just say turn on, turn off. That's not how affiliate or influencer marketing works. So it does add a little bit of complexity there. One things we're working on with networks across the board is getting the impression data. It's not something historically, surprisingly, perhaps it was as available as it was through perhaps like television or display programmatic or Google or Meta. So adding that into the mix and kind of seeing, okay, in affiliate, it's unique too because you're paying post action usually, which is the inverse of how a lot of media works. You're like booking up front for a lot of media. Some of affiliate is booked up front, but a lot of it is you're paying for after the fact. So it kind of, if you take a model out of the box, cookie cutter, an MMM model, it will basically say, well, you've paid for that action, so by definition, it worked, and it's counterintuitive. So you have to kind of set up MMM differently when you're thinking about incrementality for affiliate. You have to give it the right inputs, and you have to look at kind of exposure and a decent amount of lapse time to watch that user behavior evolve. So hopefully that gives you a little more insight into like what incrementality entails. It's oftentimes a lot. It's not the most complex topic in the world, but it's oftentimes a lot more than what people are willing to invest time and energy and money on. And sometimes finding efficiencies elsewhere is actually more valuable for them. Not always, but in particular, if you're not like over a certain media spend, or if you're not willing to like kind of put someone on this project and devote to it. Um, I do think we're getting to a place where platforms like Meta are trying to own more and more of this to guide people. So going back to what's coming, I think the democratization and access to this stuff is going to get better, but it's only so far.
Ty, what are some ways that you're seeing people test for incremental value of affiliate or partner-driven marketing and traffic right now? We talked a little bit about some of the nuances, but I'm curious if you're seeing anything, really emerging as far as a trend for how people are really testing and proving that value in that space.
A lot of people are getting a little too far on this and kind of going too far in one direction, saying, "Oh well, downloadable software is bad and not incremental," or in some cases it is not something you want to have in your program. But they're kind of just dismissing it across the board. And so there's nuance to a lot of these partner types, which is not easy for anyone to understand, to be candid. It's not necessarily doing the buyer the easiest service. Similarly, deal and coupon, they're like, oh, it's not valuable, rid of it. Of course, it's not going to fit for every promotional strategy. Of course, it's not going to fit for every brand. But I think there's some ways to look at it a little bit more thoughtfully around, let's not just use that as a hook to acquire customers. Let's think about it thoughtfully. Yeah, you might skew more influencer, more content, more review site, more TV, more email, more technology partners. But maybe there's a select handful you want to think about. So that's just an idea framework. I've talked to some really reputable retailers, and we've seen some of it firsthand where they are kind of shifting that MMM model, that marketing, media mix modeling or marketing mix modeling, depending on how you want to pronounce it or say it, um, that are tweaking it so that you've got the visibility of impression and even for influencer and not just affiliate. So by getting that data and seeing, okay, directionally, where did users see that impression? Where did that impression fire? And what behavior happened after that? Along with all the other factors that are happening in the model, that's where I think you can get affiliate and influencer to get a little bit better and getting it closer to um, kind of like an apples to apples comparison of other channels. I think that, another thing to think about in this case is that if you're just going default on Google and Meta, again, not to say they're not a good lever, you're obviously going to invest there, but you could lose your shirt essentially on what credit is being taken. So there's so many like basics that you want to dial in first. It's shocking seeing hundreds of examples of how far clients are not along the basic end of the spectrum. They understandably are like, well, I want to answer incrementality. And it's like, we can do that, but there's a lot of like little basics to do along that road to help you. And if you're ready for that, let's go for it. But I would say that's one piece of it. The other piece is like really working with your partners, because in partner marketing, it's definitely a relationship. You're not just turning on and off Google or Meta. You could be taking money away from someone's pocket. So treating it like a human being, giving them a heads up, giving them some degree of a communication. And again, it comes down to like working with really reputable folks that can, help you identify the how behind it, because it's very easier said than done. Some partners you're not going to necessarily, be as collaborative with in running a test like that. But most of the time, the ones that have the volume to justify said test are going to have that reputation, are going to be open to it, are going to showcase that they want to compete and win and show you that they're valuable. And so I think coming at it from that angle is really good. There's a degree of empathy, but then it's like, yeah, we're holding them accountable, and the partner should be willing and able to say, yeah, let's try the following, let's try all these other levers, and like, let's go to test and see if we're bringing incremental value for you. So it's doable. It's surprising how many people don't think it, either used to not think it was possible or don't think it's possible with affiliate and influencer, and it actually is. Um, and so it's just sometimes it becomes a prioritization exercise.
Yeah, absolutely. And just what's important? What are the goals, right? Always comes with marketing, like getting back to the strategy. Why are we doing this? It's just not all about tactics.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, such a great topic. that we could go on and on about, but we only have 6 minutes left, and we want to make sure we ask you about your favorite tools in your tech stack. So could you let us know, what are some of your favorite tools in your tech stack, Ty?
Yeah, I think I dropped a bunch of names, but I'll try my best to drop some more. So affiliate side, impact.com is a great option. They've invested a lot. They rolled out a cool product roadmap of what's coming at their IPX event in Austin here about a week ago. We've been longtime users and advocates for them. There's definitely a lot of networks in the space, but I think they're doing some great things there. Um, on the B2B side, I would definitely think about Partner Stack. They're doing some really interesting things on B2B SaaS focused, and the partner marketing world where you're dealing with CRM, where you're dealing with connecting brand to brand. There's something to look at there for that use case, depending on how you're thinking about it. Um, we've had a lot of success with Creator Co on the influencer side. It's often a wrangling cat herding game on influencers, and they've done a really good job of kind of combining a lot of what agencies are looking for, what brands are looking for, in a way that's usable and quality. There's a lot of noise in that space, and I think they've done a very good job. Um, on the measurement side, um, Paramark has been really collaborative. They're up and coming. They're growing. Their CEO is doing a great job of getting information out there. Um, I think some of the other, players in measurement are quality that I mentioned previously, like Measured, House, Northbeam. Um, Triple Whale is a local here in Austin that has been around for a while on multi-touch attribution, and so I think that's a lot to kind of chew on. Um, I would probably say Recast is another name out there that's quite good in terms of looking at the incrementality space and figuring things out from an incrementality perspective. But oftentimes, as you all know, you kind of need to have a very sound strategy and human interaction with said tool. It
Yeah.
is always it can be overlooked at times.
And trust in that tool and those human interactions as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, how many times has someone said to you like their GA is worthless, or like, it's
Right.
just that if it's not instrumented properly, it's garbage in, garbage out.
That's right. Exactly right. Well, that was all really great. Thank you so much for sharing all of those tools with us. But in closing, Ty, would you like to let listeners know how they can find you after the show?
Awesome. Thanks, Jesse. Yeah, LinkedIn's probably the easiest. Ty DeGrange, pretty easy to find there. We love to do a lot of education similar to this. The Always Be Testing pod I'm the host of, and I get to kind of be the one asking the questions, and I love that learning. So this gives me a chance to kind of share learnings with you and the audience. So thank you for letting me do that. The RBL Flywheel newsletter is something that we're hoping to drop later today. Actually, it happens to be on Beehive's platform, and it's just a good education roundup on partner marketing, what's happening in that space, what's coming up. We like to do predictions and share data and make it fun. And yeah, that's a mouthful, so I'll stop there.
Well, Ty, thanks so much for making the time to join us. It's been a great conversation, and we really enjoyed having you on deconstructing data today.
Thanks, Adam. Thanks, Jesse. Appreciate you both. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. And before we go, I just want to let our audience members know I put a QR code on the screen if you're watching on video. Otherwise, if you're listening to this later on podcast, just simply go to bdex.com to see where we're sending you. But, we want to invite you to get powered by BDEX. BDEX, we have this comprehensive identity graph, and it enables you to build your audiences that will reach real people and turn your anonymous website visitors into real actionable customer insights. And this eliminates the bots, it eliminates the bad data, and it doesn't waste your marketing budget going after those bots and bad data. So whether you're struggling with cart abandonment, there's poor targeting, or just declining performance in general in your marketing, we deliver the most accurate identity graph and identity resolution, I guess I would say, custom audiences in the industry to drive measurable ROI. So just use that QR code and scan it. go over to bdex.com, click on talk to an expert. Chances are you might be talking to Adam and or someone else on the team, but you're going to get an expert on the phone, and we're going to be able to help you look at your data and figure out where to go from there. So if that's something that you're struggling with and you're looking to save money on, just by improving your data and cleaning it up, then reach out to us. Use that QR code or go to bdex.com and talk to an expert. But other than that, this has been a great episode. Thank you both so much for being here. Adam, it's always great to have you back on Deconstructing Data. And I think we're going to be seeing you again next week too, right?
I think you'll have David next week.
Oh, okay. We'll be back with David. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Well, then next time we'll see you when David takes his next trip. So we'll have to encourage him to take more vacations. Ty, thanks again for coming in and sharing all of your knowledge with us.
Thank you.
All right. Take care.